Hello, everybody. Today, we are going to chat about abundance and generosity. But first, a reminder that this is brought to you by Root. And Root is a company and an online school whose mission is to find to understand the root level systems of humanity in order to find our route or our root. And if you are interested, we have a Root Fellowship, which is a community of world-class systems thinkers looking to understand and build the future. So check us out at root.co. Also, whoever you are in the world, much love to you and your family. I hope your health is well. I hope you're happy, and I hope you are being reflective. Okay, we are in the final stretch here. This is talking about abundance and generosity. And there's kind of three big parts. We're going to talk about abundance and generosity generally. Then we'll talk about abundance. Then we'll talk about generosity. And finally, we'll do a conclusion. And that conclusion will be concluding all of Root and not just this section. Okay, so today it's pretty quick. Just what is abundance and generosity and why is it important and helpful? Okay, so what is it? Well, there are two pieces here. Abundance is the relentless process of abstracting resources to meet human needs, while generosity is giving back some of our newfound financial abundance. So abundance is this process of abstracting resources, creating more and more things for society. We now have so much food and goods and t-shirts, and now we have so much information, and those are all, the whole goal with all that is to meet more human needs. And then generosity is the idea that once you start to have enough, you can start to give back. So abundance, I want to emphasize first this relentless process piece, that it has been happening for as long as Homo sapiens have been around, right? With the agricultural revolution, we abstracted, land and turned it into food. And then with the industrial revolution, we abstracted capital, or we used factories to abstract, to take atoms and push them through those factories to make goods. And now with the information revolution, we have created this amazing network of computers around the world where you can send information all for free. And so there's this constant process of abstraction and commoditization and democratization of resources so that you can get more and more in society. And this is why, even though we have 8 billion people on the planet today, there's enough stuff, or there's kind of enough stuff for all of us. So it's this relentless process. You abstract the resources, you get more of them, and then in the end, though, you do this to meet human needs. So there are lots of things that we could abstract, but we only create processes around the things that humans actually want, that meet human needs. And then generosity is where we give back some of that financial abundance. And a couple points here. One is thinking about abundance and the financial abundance. We'll talk about this more later, but the idea is that certain folks are getting to the point where, myself included, where I have enough money, and you can then start to allow, when you get money, you can just allow it to flow through you and give it back to others. And this newfound piece is interesting and crucial, which is this has not been true for very long. For almost all of human history, getting more money and food and goods made more sense. It made you happier. But now we are actually experiencing abundance, so you can let it flow through you. And the vision here is that it would feel something like this, where you're walking around, and some of this is already true, where you can, pick fruit from the trees in your neighborhood, and they say, hey, please pick the fruit from the trees. And you walk near a little free library that says, hey, take this library book. And then you walk by the real library, and they're like, oh, if you want tools, we'll lend them out for a bit. And we're getting to this point now where we are starting to experience some of this abundance. And you can imagine in the future, it's even more so, where you can just leave bikes out and they don't get stolen because people have enough. And where if you want extra money, you kind of just ask for it. That's what we're going to be moving more and more towards. On the generosity side, what it will feel like, kind of as I said before, and this is just this a woman Navi. These are pictures from this long form piece that I wrote, and the illustrations are from my friend Audra. And this story is about Navi, who is learning about the different kinds of resources. And in the story, she's learning about these kinds of resources. And here she's learning about money. And the idea behind money is that, once you have this is a little bento box here. And once you have your now me full, you can start to allow it to overflow and give that money back to others to help them. So when I have enough, I can give it to very poor people and help them meet their basic needs. We've seen some other examples of this generosity piece and kind of the abundance piece as well with this graph that I think has been in every single presentation I've given. And remember that this graph shows the people over the last 2 centuries, and that things have gotten a lot better. And in this top left corner, you can see extreme poverty, where it used to be that everybody was in extreme poverty, and now almost no one is in extreme poverty. So we're getting closer and closer to this vibe of abundance. And you can see it from a macro level here. You can also see it from a micro level, where this is a graph of how happy people reported being, graph that's on the y-axis versus individual income on the x-axis. And the income, by the way, is at a log scale, so it doubles each time. And what this shows is, you get happier at the beginning, the first, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. But once you get to 40,000, 45,000, it really flattens off, right? All of these are just 4 different metrics for how happy you feel, whether it's, stress-free or having a positive affect or whatever. You feel better. And you feel better and better, but then you just flatten off. And so we're getting to this point where it's like, I could get a lot more money, but is that necessary? Like, does it actually make me happier? Now let's connect abundance and generosity and relate them to the root paradigm. And remember that the root paradigm, there's these 3 crucial components: the epistemology of coherent pluralism, the ontology of networkism, and the ethics of bentoism. And so why do we have this 4th thing here? Why is there generosity and abundance? Like, it shouldn't even be part of it, because this is a perfect these are all categories that are orthogonal to each other and completely different from each other. So where does this 4th thing come in? And the idea here is that generosity and abundance, I think it is enough of a crucial idea such that, although it's technically not orthogonal to any of these concepts, the idea that we can allow money to flow through us and go back to other folks is going to drastically change things in a big way, and we need to think of it as its 4th category. So the way to think about it, though, is that there's the abundance piece is really part of this ontology, where it's about these truths of the world, where you're saying, okay, the ontology is all about creating protocols and, abstracting things and creating new abundance in society, and it's all about like what is happening. And so this abundance piece is saying, hey, what is happening is we're getting enough. We're like getting to the point where we have enough. While the generosity piece is more on the ethics side. It's kind of saying, you have what I call now me overflow, where you have enough, your now me needs are met, and so you can give to something like future us. So for example, I carbon offset my activities. And the reason why I can do that is because I have enough to give back and give to future us. So this is to say that abundance and generosity is technically not outside of the root paradigm. Abundance is just part of ontology, and generosity is just part of ethics. It's like hey, you should probably do this. But it's important enough that I think it's getting its whole section here. So why is it important and why is it helpful? Well, the first thing is that just to reemphasize that abstracting processes and thinking about what's going to become abundant next, it really helps us predict and it helps us understand the past and predict the future. So as we showed here, those progressions from the agricultural revolution to the industrial revolution, now the information revolution, we can see how these scarcity and abundance dynamics have played out through time. Food used to be scarce, then it wasn't. We made so much of it. Then land was scarce, then it wasn't. Then capital and the factories were scarce. And now we're getting to the place where attention is scarce, where there's so much information that the attention is the scarce thing. So that's why we emphasize this piece of abundance, is that it'll help us predict the future. which we'll go into in the next episode. And specifically, you can zoom in and say, here are these abundance and abstraction dynamics within code specifically. And this is that classic USV piece where you look at the infrastructure versus the app layer. And at the infrastructure layer, we built TCP IP at the beginning, and then that allowed a bunch of apps to be built on top of it, which then forced something like the Google PageRank layer. And so there's this connection between abstraction and abundance and infrastructure versus applications at the specific code level as well, in addition to that macro agricultural industrial information revolution. The second big reason why it's important is because this is the first time in human history where financial accumulation doesn't make sense, right? For so long, it has made sense for us to be greedy and to want more money on ourselves, to be dragons, to hoard the gold. But now it makes sense for it to flow through us. And, that change, you can think of all of human history, and now we're getting to this final little corner here where it's like, okay, this is a big change, allowing, flipping this tiny bit that says some people may have enough and can just give back to the system. That's going to have a lot of impacts on where society is headed. Now thinking about why it's helpful, I think part of the reason why it's helpful is because abundance helps us envision a positive future. So thinking about this, VR scene, some of these, it's a crucial aspect of future visioning. Is like, okay, we're going to get to this beautiful, abundant place where everybody has enough. That is hopefully true and is a crucial part of any future vision that we want to have. And then the other thing here is, away from that vision, the generosity piece gives us a specific value to live by. So no matter what you're doing, whether you're a teacher or a fire person or a police officer or a coder or an artist or a musician, whatever you are, everybody can just embody this value of generosity and say, I might get to the point where I have enough and I can give back. And that, as kind of a universal value, is very powerful. And it involves other things like there's allowing money to flow through you, but you can also start to change other relationships, like your relationship to winning. Instead of competing, you can start to collaborate or co-evolve in a way. You can start to, think of things from this whole bento perspective and really think about winning as winning for everybody and not just winning for your specific needs, but thinking about the macro view of winning. So it helps us individually do that value of generosity, and then it also helps us by flipping that switch. We can change our mindset about winning and competition and things like that as well. Okay, what does abundance and generosity feel like in your body? I'm feeling a bit of tension around the abundance piece, where I'm claiming that there's so much abundance, and yet 750 million people are still in extreme poverty, and COVID has wrecked lots of people's lives, and 40% of America doesn't have enough money in the bank to deal with a car crash or a car payment. So I think there's a tension there where not everybody's abundant, and I recognize that. And that's the whole shtick, in fact, is that some people have it and should give back to the people who don't. The other piece here is on generosity, where I feel a bit of embarrassment around shoulding people, where I'm telling people, you should give back and you should, self-tax yourself and let the money flow through you. And I don't like to should people. And yet I do feel like it's very important, but I think it's the thing that's among all the stuff that we've talked about, it's the thing that I'm the most shouldy about. I'm like, hey, you should do this. And I think it's really cool. But I also think that people could feel that judgment and say, oh no, I'm not giving enough back, or I'm giving 5% or 20%. What should I do? So I recognize that as well. Interactive time. How does abundance and generosity relate to the root paradigm? That's a quick quiz. Is it? Yeah. Second question. Are there other times in human history where humans didn't need to hoard resources? Okay. What will it feel like to integrate your learning and what to watch out for? You'll start to see abundance in your life and see that you have more t-shirts than you need, and that's amazing. Or, this picture in the bottom right corner here was when I was going on a camping trip with friends, and my coat was really old and its zipper was broken and stuff. And a friend who was there had just gotten back from another trip and had gotten free stuff. I was like, oh, do you need these coats? And I was like, oh my God, yes, please. And then later that week, my earphones had broken and I was using the little earplugs, and I was complaining about it to a coworker, and they were like, oh, do you need, earphones? We have all these Bose ones, these $400 headphones just in the corner over here. And I was like, what? There's just sitting here is all this. So this idea that both in your normal life, you have a lot of stuff and that you can access so much stuff for very little money is cool. And that sometimes the world, on Burning Man, we'd say the playa provides, that the world just has abundance to give to you of coats and headphones and things like that. You'll also start to recognize the second piece here of the scarcity mindset versus the abundant mindset, where people, and especially if you think about really poor folks, operating from a place of scarcity is really tough. You're really focused on your short-term needs, and you get really tunnel vision-y. And that's really hard. And you can also see it when you're interacting with someone like in a business thing, and you're like, oh, what about this? And they're always like, no, I need to protect this thing or whatever. And you're like, it's going to be okay. And so versus coming from an abundant mindset where you might come into someone and say, oh, what's up? I can give this. I'm happy to give. And noticing the difference between those two mindsets will start to come up in your mind. The third piece is, what kind of generosity feels good to you? And for me, I've had my own iterations on this, where at the beginning I had this weird, any money that I made after $45,000, I would give 50% of it. And then I switched to a thing where I gave 20% of my income. And then I switched to a thing where I gave 10% of my income, because the 20% was a little high because I want to have kids and blah, blah, blah. And I don't make that much money. So whatever feels right to you, you'll start to experiment with that. Maybe go hard at the beginning and then let off, just try it out. There's no right number here. And then also whether it's manifest as money or through other ways, you can express abundance in your community by really helping people and, not requiring something in return. So it doesn't have to be money, but just do what feels best to you. Thank you for listening. Hope you're still well. And if you would like to, check out the Root Fellowship. We chat about stuff like this. It's awesome. I have an abundant mindset around and a generosity mindset around the cost. It's $2,000, but if you ask and want it to be less, that's fine. Whatever you want to pay. Check us out at root.co. Thanks.